approach jiu-jitsu as first and foremost a martial art. Right? And second would be for the sport of it and the love of it and whatever else, but it's first and foremost a fighting art. And a lot of people, they want to play the game. It's like they want to go to a boxing gym but not get punched. They want to do all the punching. They don't want to get hit though, but they want to say they're a boxer. They want to train boxing. They want to hit people. They don't want to deal with the other side of that. Jiu-jitsu, like as playful as it can be, as gentle as it can be, first and foremost, it's a way to protect ourselves.
Worth more than any money that I can, because I have had opportunities to make that kind of money. And I was like, nah.
And now you've got the opportunity to do something you really love. And that's the thing people mistake. Like it's not that we don't care about money. I think people's idea of what money is and what it means is off, right? So like if you want money just to get money, you're never going to be happy because there's always going to be more money to get. And the more money you make, you usually spend more money. So it's not like your income versus outcome changes much. You're still gonna be in the same position. It's not like you make more money, you have more money to blow. Now you're getting nicer things for yourself, you're upgrading your house, whatever it is. So you're gonna make more money and you're just never gonna be happy. Whereas like my idea of making more money is to get more freedom for myself.
What do people get wrong with their philosophies training to be better at jiu-jitsu?
I think people like to train jiu-jitsu starting off with the right purposes and intentions, knowing that it's going to be hard, but seeing how hard it really is and having to constantly check your ego. I've been doing this 18 years and I still have to check my ego sometimes, even it's in a good place, but it's tough to go in and train properly to get better because it requires you to not do what you want to do, not do what's fun, get your butt kicked a little bit, right? So I think training for taps and doing the fun stuff takes precedence over getting better. And I feel like that's what hinders people. But just to play devil's advocate, I feel like if you showed up and only did that, you're eventually going to get good and you're eventually going to get your black belt, right? So it's not so much about the right and wrong way. Everything in jiu-jitsu is about efficiency, right? We're trying to move as efficiently as possible, save energy, conserve energy. I feel the same way about time, and that's why I'm constantly preaching it. So everyone's getting better at a faster rate and more efficiently. If I can make you good in 5 years instead of that same period 10 years later, that's what I'm going to do as a coach, right? So I want people to stick around, and I feel like the best way to stick around is to see results, right? So if I get somebody to start losing weight or on a new gym routine or a new diet plan, let's say, and I know that if they stick to that routine over the course of time, it's going to improve their life. They're going to see results. But if I can ensure that they're seeing results as fast as possible, that's going to be the extra little fire that they need to continue on with the path. But the issue is consistency. It's tough to stay consistent, especially without results. So again, my job is to just make sure people are getting good as fast as possible. And by doing that, it's not for medals. It's not to win anything in particular. It's not to be the best person on the mat. It's so that they enjoy it so much that they can make it a lifestyle.
Yeah, so would you say it's more of like a mindset? Is it consistency? What do you think is the most optimized way to kind of approach jiu-jitsu if you want to get really, really good or even want to like compete at a high level?
I think it's addressing the bad parts of your game, right? Like you learn a new choke, it's super cool and it's super fun and you want to try it and you get it. It's the best feeling in the world. Not the best feeling in the world just because you got out of mount. Because in everyone's head, I'm still mounted, my guard sucks, it just got passed. They're not thinking the same positive spin behind escaping mount as they are executing a cool choke. But if you can highlight those areas, I think it'll help them appreciate the growth process and be able to kind of put themselves in that mindset that every day I'm going to get a little bit better, even if it's not in the areas that I intend to or it's the most fun. But if you can't get out of mount and in one training session you escape 3 times on people who normally were finishing you, that's just as big of a win, if not a bigger win, than you hitting a cool new choke on someone who maybe was a little bit newer than you or less experienced, right? So the emphasis on those things is tough to kind of get behind.
I would imagine that's what makes people stick around because, like, say if their friend kind of tells them, oh yeah, this is how jiu-jitsu is, it's so cool, you get to armbar, and then when they actually go in there, at least in your program, right, what you just said, it's almost like, whoa, hold on, that's not really kind of how it is most of the time. It's about getting out of arm bars, which is pretty cool, because I think like doing a hitchhiker is just smooth as fuck when you get when you were able to pull it off. But I think that's when people like probably make it or break it, when they realize that it's like, oh, it's not just like, let me rear naked choke someone.
Yeah, it's almost like wanting to play basketball and immediately wanting to slam dunk. You know, or you're only playing baseball because of the home runs. Right? Like there's so many other little things that we have to get good at and develop before those come. And in the long run, you will start doing those things if that's the goal. But it can't be the reason why you're playing, right? The reason we play the game, first and foremost, and I think is the most important thing that people lose sight of and maybe not even think of, is surviving a fight.
Yes.
Right? A small guy like us getting attacked or having to fight or defend ourselves or protect our family against someone 2 or 3 times our size. The first goal should be to survive, not get beat up, manage distance properly, keep our guard, keep our limbs between us, have solid frames if we do end up in a bad spot. Those are the most important things. And then everything after that is secondary.
So that's like pretty much practicality. That's the way you think about jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
Like you're always, say if you're rolling with someone, say like your brother, you're always like, oh, well, if he has me in this position and starts like punching me, then he could really fuck me up. And that's how you base your game off of?
Yes.
Kind of like, oh, I got to frame off this guy and get him the fuck away from me.
For sure. I approach jiu-jitsu as first and foremost a martial art. Right? And second would be for the sport of it and the love of it and whatever else. But it's first and foremost a fighting art. And a lot of people, they want to play the game. It's like they want to go to a boxing gym but not get punched. They want to do all the punching. They don't want to get hit though. But they want to say they're a boxer. They want to train boxing. They want to hit people. They don't want to deal with the other side of that. Jiu-jitsu, like as playful as it can be, as gentle as it can be, first and foremost, it's a way to protect ourselves. And to me, what stood out to me was a smaller guy or girl being able to do it against a much larger opponent. Every other martial wrestling, there's weight classes, and they don't go outside of it. There's no super fights where a guy my size is wrestling a heavyweight. Muay Thai, there's weight classes for reason, boxing, name it. But jiu-jitsu, a smaller guy is capable of defeating or at least defending themselves against a bigger opponent. And that's what drew me to it, obviously being a smaller guy.
Right.
So I feel like, and you guys hear me constantly, you never hear me talking about competitors or hobbyists or someone who trains twice a week. I don't have categories for what I wouldn't say allow, but encourage people to train under. Everyone trains the same. We're all going to train jiu-jitsu for what it is, because if you're a hobbyist blue belt who trains twice a week, or you're a competitive purple belt who has won a bunch of medals, you're both going to train the same way. That way, God forbid, if you have to defend yourself, one of Jerry's students didn't get beat up by some raged out person who has no training. Like everyone's going to train the same exact way. So we're all benefiting the same way. And then the paths you take to get better is up to you. Competing's one of them. It's a small path. I think people overemphasize what competing does for you. It's a great way to fill holes and find holes in your game, but it's a path you can take. That doesn't mean you're going to be it's going to guarantee you a black belt, and it doesn't mean the person who doesn't compete isn't going to eventually become a black belt. We're all going to train the same exact way though, you know? And it's for that purpose of being a martial art.
Speaking of which, like as far as competition and being like a hobbyist, I've never been a competitor, but can you explain to me like what you do find as far as maybe like your epiphanies on what you learn about yourself when you're competing? I know it's more, you know, obviously aggressive. You're trying to like literally, I mean, you know, fuck the practice rule. Like you're at competition, so you're going fucking ham. What do you learn about the most? Is it the pacing? Is it like, oh, you have to turn it up like tenfold now? Like what is it between being at the actual gym and competition, the biggest difference that you've seen and changed about your game?
That's a great question. I think technically speaking, when we're in the gym, when me and you are rolling, we're boys. We have no ego with each other. You catch me, I catch you. We say, damn it, slap hands, keep rolling. But like, we're not thinking too much about what we're doing. On top of that, we're willing to mess up because of it. I'm willing to mess up because I know you're not going to talk crap afterwards, and our girls aren't watching and they're going to talk crap. And so nothing's on the line. So you're willing to make mistakes. By doing that, you don't know really how detrimental those mistakes could be to your game. So when you go to compete, you're almost going to do what feels most natural. You're going to go to your default mode, and you're going to do that. So you may do something in competition you never do in the gym because it was second nature to you. It was instinctual to do that. And that's why it's so important to train purposefully in the gym, because what you need to do, like you hear me constantly, they'll drill a couple times and then they'll stop drilling.
Yeah.
It takes 10,000 reps, they say, right?
Yeah.
To master something. Like you want to get as many reps as you can so that it's second nature, because when you go to compete, you're going to only do the things that are second nature to you. If you have to think about it, if you've only drilled it a couple times, you haven't actually hit it on someone at your level in the training room, you're definitely not going to do it in the competition. So it's a good way to expose what your default mode is. Yes. And then you need to build on that and take that back to the gym. So that's why it's so beneficial to compete. And then the other things that I think are really important to learn about, that you get to learn in competition, is just about yourself. You know, how much you care about what other people think, how much you care about losing or win, how much ego do you really have? How do you rationalize it? Maybe it's a human across the board thought to be scared and not want to be embarrassed. What do you do with that? How do you compartmentalize that right before you go out there? Can you distribute that in your mind properly to where you go, okay, yeah, I don't want to look stupid, but focus on what I need to focus on, and let's win these little battles so that I can win the war. Can you do that, or do you freak out and panic and then freeze up in competition?
Right.
Not to win, but also not to lose. So you just get to learn a lot about yourself and how your mind works and how you deal with adversity and how you deal with fear and how you deal with all these negative thoughts that are naturally running through our head. So you just get to learn a lot about yourself. Anytime you see someone raise, like they get their hand, you haven't competed, right?
No.
You get your hand raised at MMA, Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a little more comfortable, obviously, with Jiu-Jitsu now, but MMA, I got my hand raised. I was so stoked, not because I won the fight per se, but I won the fight in my head.
Yep.
All those little voices that were telling me before fight night, up to fight night, you could lose, you could get hurt, you get embarrassed, your wife's watching, your family's watching, your kids are watching, your team's watching, the haters are watching. The people who want you to succeed and support you are watching. All these people bought these. There's so many negative thoughts that run through your head that when I finally win, it's like, damn, I did it. Like I got through it. Not the fight, forget the fight. That was secondary to everything. But like I didn't break to those thoughts in my head. Like I did it for myself.
So you're talking about like the evidence that you have for yourself. It's kind of like, oh, I really do have, like I really can do this. Is it like breaking the imposter syndrome kind of? It's kind of like, oh, okay, well I just kind of went through it. So no one could tell me otherwise now, right?
Yeah,
like even if you lose.
I wouldn't say imposter syndrome, because there's also that other factor that I'm very, before you go into a fight, you better have some sort of confidence. And the confidence is going to come from your training, your coaches, your teammates, the work you did. So there's a confidence there. But just naturally as humans, we're prone to go negative for default mode, right? We have 24 hours a day. If I were to say, hey, Chris, how was your day today? You wouldn't go usually, man, it was amazing. I had most of my day great. How was yours? It would usually be, I was all right, man. Kind of tired.
Right.
This dick cut me off in traffic. So-and-so cussed me out. Like it would just, all the negatives would be at the front of your mind to spit out. So just naturally it's negative. We're never, I'm going to take this fight. And then before you go out there, you're not thinking naturally all the positive things of why you deserve to win and all the effort you've put into actually earning that win. It's like, what didn't I do? Our brains are just programmed to go negative. And so I wouldn't say it's imposter syndrome. It's just being able to deal with that. We all have it. Some people can get over it and work past it. Other people can't, and it breaks them. And so much that they're too scared to ever compete or put themselves out there or even show up to the gym. I don't want to put my ego on the line to show up to a gym and just try a class and then stick around after some small 115-pound girl just kicked their butt and they thought they were tough. So like it takes a lot to overcome those negative mental demons. So I think competition really helps you first expose it, what they are, and then overcome them,
Yeah, the evolutionary mind is like a really crazy thing. It holds you back from so much that's almost invisible.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, like what you said about going to the actual gym or even doing this podcast or starting, I don't know, maybe your Patreon or going, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, damn, there's sometimes the grass is greener on the other side if you just kind of break over that hump. And it's not like someone's going to kill you over there. It's just like just trying to kind of cross that barrier through your mind.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is just, it's a good reminder and it's evidence, like you were saying, proof, not necessarily of the imposter syndrome, just you can do it.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of negative thoughts to hold you back. But if you just give it some effort, you'll see that you can do it. And like that starts from, again, just even showing up to the gym.
Yeah.
Damn, I don't want to go to this gym. There's a bunch of fighters probably there. It's Syndicate MMA.
Right.
I'm going to go and get my butt. And then you show up on the mat, so everyone's cool. And you can do it. And you're hanging and you survive something. You saw what the coach was talking about with the technique and then, okay, now I can do this. And you start showing up and you start building other goals, but they're going to seem like impossibilities. Like, I wish I could do this. And then all of a sudden you set it as a goal, you overcome that one. And it's just like, it's a snowball effect of just, wanting to do something and then action,
It's crazy because once you reach those goals, I notice it's just the goalpost never stops moving.
Yeah.
It never ends. Like that's just life in general. It's just kind of like, okay, well, if you reach, I don't know, like maybe a purple belt, brown belt, black belt, it never ends. It's like you have to maintain. But I think that's probably like one of the core signs of like true happiness, to be solving problems like that. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I love that you said that. It's I talk about this all the time. I'm a big nerd with jiu-jitsu where like I'll understand a concept or a principle or something that just applies on the mats, and I'll try and find how it applies off the mats. Because that's, you said jiu-jitsu saved your life, saved my life, gave me a life to where I found some purpose. And through doing jiu-jitsu, I've found so many ways that it helps me out off the mat that it seems like we're just learning arm locks and chokes. That's the fun part of it, but there's so much going on. And like one of them is not that there's no goal, but there's no destination. We're never going to get to where we want to be. You could win a medal in a competition. That's been your goal and you'll get there. Monday morning shows up and it's like, what's next? Like, dang, I don't feel as fulfilled, but the lead up to it is where we feel the most fulfilled, and I equate this, like I give an analogy of like even my, with my black belt, if I stopped training and I didn't show up for a year, how would our round go? I don't get to just keep my skill. I got to constantly work. So even though I have a black belt, it's not like I made it anywhere. I still have to continue to do the same things on the mat that got me to my black belt. Otherwise, the black belt doesn't mean anything. So it's an illusion. Yeah. You know what I mean? My marriage, I'm happily married for 18 years. My wife's my best friend. If I stopped being the man that she married or that she wanted to start dating, right? If I just like, okay, I won the girl, I got the girl, and I stopped being me, she'd leave me. I'd lose the girl. So like a lot of people do that. Like they get what they want and then they get complacent. And like the best thing I've learned through jiu-jitsu is no matter what, the goalpost is going to continuously move further, and we got to keep pushing, and we're going to keep, the journey is the most important thing. What are we doing to get ourselves better? Whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, technically, whatever it is. The journey to whatever we're trying to get to is the important part, because you're going to get to the top of that mountain and you're going to look around and go, shit, I wish the mountain was a little bit higher. Right. Most people should. But that's what I've learned. That's what I've taken the most. I think that's the most important part of jiu-jitsu. Yeah, just understanding that.
The growth mindset, I think you need that in a marriage. So would you say, kind of pivoting off a little bit, what's been the key to a good marriage? Because you've been married for some time. I'm sure jiu-jitsu has a lot to, cross over to that.
Yeah.
What would you say, Coach, would be like a good, I guess you could say, practical advice to having a happy marriage, I guess?
So I'm going to nerd out again on jiu-jitsu.
Sure. Of course. That's what we're here for.
Focusing and being willing to do the hard things that aren't fun. Yeah. Right? So like with jiu-jitsu, let someone mount you an entire day. All they're doing, you're working at a mount. Let them take your back. Let them, do the hard things. And it's easier said than done. It's like, I think I'm going to work on getting mounted today. And then we show up to the gym, and now this dude, he's been running his mouth a little bit, playfully, but now, all right, now my ego's a little bit involved and I don't want to lose to this guy today, right? Or you're exhausted and now letting someone mount you doesn't sound as fun. So now you go back to default mode of just playing your A game and wanting to compete a little bit. In the moment, actually doing the hard things. Same thing I think in my marriage has been willing to have the tough talks, right? Like communication is everything, good and bad. We again, been together 18 years.
That's a long time. Yep.
So we started young, 18 and 19 years old. So think about how much we've grown just as people. Like, we're both not the same people. We're constantly growing and we're constantly changing. We had to make sure that we're communicating along the way so that we were doing it together and not growing apart. And it's easy to say communication when things are nice and things are fun and, you know, there's something happy or positive I want to talk about. Doing the hard things, like talking about the things that, man, it doesn't, I don't know how to say this to my wife, or she doesn't know how to say something to me, but us figuring out and having that talk. Things aren't going well, we got to have that talk. We got to, you know, come up with resolutions. We got to do a lot of compromise. We got to do a lot of compromising, right? I may not be happy with fully what you want of me in this moment or for this situation, but I'll meet you halfway. How can we come up with this halfway? And just going through those hard talks, the hard stuff is where the important things are.
It's cliche to say, you know, with the communication, I completely get what you're saying. But it's so necessary because I think people let it linger on and then they're resentful of each other.
Oh, for sure.
And then after that, there's almost no more turning back. I'm a big statistic guy. It's like 60% of people get divorced. That's a fucking huge number. You know, at this point, I'm a single guy. It's like, why would I want to get married? And then all I have to hear is the examples around me to be like, whoa, grab the brakes. Like,
it's negative. But if you dissected all those, you'd probably be able to see simple things that aren't being executed, like proper communication. And this, like, the word simple, I think gets misconstrued with easy, and all of life's keys to success are all simple things. That doesn't mean they're easy though. They're usually the hardest things to do, you know? So sounds simple and cliche to say communication, but that's one of the hardest things to do, to tell someone you care about how they're not making you happy or what you would like to see them improve in themselves so that you didn't start to fall out of love with them. Like us making sure we're growing together and saying the things, I hope they don't take this the wrong way, but I need to say it for the betterment of our marriage. And most people can't do that. Most people can't do that even to themselves.
Confrontation is hard for a lot of people.
Most people can't look in the mirror and be honest with themselves. You know, they
that's
have
a great point. Wow.
Delusional ideas of who they are or how they act or their character. And they can't even have honest conversations with themselves. So no way they're doing it to someone else in fear of potentially losing that person. They'd rather keep the lies going, they'll rationalize it as little white lies. But in the end, they always come out, you know? So again, simple doesn't mean it's easy. Do the simple things. Show up to the gym every day. Sounds simple. Eat clean.
Right.
Work out for 30 minutes a day. It sounds super easy or simple. Not easy at all.
Not easy, yeah.
You're gonna have to do that day in and day out, over and over, when it's boring, when you don't want to do it, when you're sore, when you're tired, you had a bad day, your schedule didn't work out, you were at work longer, you have to be in work a little early, so you couldn't. Doesn't matter. You have to work out for 30 minutes. You have to eat clean. You have to have the hard talk. All the simple things in life. Show up to jiu-jitsu and just drill properly. Let people mount you and work out of there. Sounds simple. Sounds easy, but it's tough to do. And this is across the board, I think, with life. The simplest things are simple. We know what to do. We just want to create some sort of shortcut to make it easy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Everything that goes in, like, I guess you build your own identity. It's like you say you are, like, even if I don't compete, when I go to jiu-jitsu, that's where I came up with this, like, the imposter syndrome kind of principle. It's because honestly, when I go to the gym and I'm doing jiu-jitsu, and I started martial arts maybe in my early 30s or late 20s, and I still can't believe I'm doing it because I never did I think in my life I'd be like, wait, I'm fucking grabbing someone, I'm trying to take someone down, you know, even with striking, I'm getting punched in the face. What is this is crazy. And you know, in high school I would have never imagined like you'd be doing this. That's why I'm like, am I really like, sometimes I talk to my friend, I'll be like, am I really doing this shit? Am I going to jiu-jitsu for like an hour and a half and like, you know, rolling
and
like
improving and doing better and
but I never imagined that, like, saying from like my past and all that. And I think you're completely right. I think you are what you consume, you are what you eat, you are your environment. And I think that's something that I'm gonna write on my literal gravestone. Like, you are who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, for sure. And being aware and trying to fix those things, like how same thing, here's another jiu-jitsu analogy, but when you go to compete or you go to maybe cross train at another gym, you roll with a new training partner, you're trying to find holes in your game so that you become a better practitioner. And if me and you rolled every day, we might not expose every hole that there is. So it's important to do those things, that compete and put yourself out of your comfort zone to try and find those blind spots that you have of yourself. Same thing in life. I think people have they have an idea of who they are and they're okay with that. And they're unapologetically themselves, which to one extent is okay. But how many times, let's say let's take you for instance, I have an idea of who you are. Do you think my idea of who you are matches exactly to who you think you are?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
And then I could talk to my brother and I'll say, hey, what's your experience with Chris? He might give me a completely different person, right? So we almost have all these different, we might be this different person to all these different people. So I'm open to figuring out who I am based on who I am. And I like feedback and I like hearing, people's takes on who I am so that maybe I'm something to somebody that I was completely unaware of. Mm-hmm. I might be a funny, lighthearted, cracking jokes, roast you a little bit guy, and that's who I would describe myself as. And someone else might be like, dude, he's an arrogant prick who constantly talking shit about me. And he's always roasting people and he talks shit, so
right.
perception's everything. So I like to know that. So even if I'm not intentionally being that person, at least I don't have blinders to it. And I can work on it and I can be aware of myself, so that's another thing I don't think people do enough of is try to figure out who they are, be honest with themselves, and also be open to figuring out who they aren't, where they could be improving. And same thing with jiu-jitsu, it's what we should be constantly doing is trying to fill holes, take our blinders off of these things and be better, constant improvement, always looking to improve, in one way or another.
You told me a little bit about that, Coach. Who would you say Jerry Shapiro is as far as how you see yourself? Let's start subjectively and how you think people see you objectively.
I would say about myself, I'm going to say the things that I'm most proud of myself.
Yep.
And it's a good father and husband. I'm intentionally trying to be a good father and husband. I'm always trying to make improvements in those areas. I feel like I'm passionate about everything I do. I feel like it's tough for me to not be genuine with somebody. And if I don't like you, I feel like people know pretty quick. I'm not necessarily going to be a jerk about it, but I feel like people know right off the bat who I am because I'm not going to be fake about it, That's something I'm proud of. I don't like having to wear different masks around different people.
Before you go on to that, is that hard being the main jiu-jitsu coach in Syndicate? Because it is still a business and you kind of got to cater to new students, right? You kind of gotta you can't just be like, hey, this shit ain't after 2 classes, this shit ain't for you, man. So,
but that's the thing is I feel like jiu-jitsu can be for absolutely everybody.
Okay.
If everybody is willing to conform to what it takes to be good at jiu-jitsu. But I've seen what you would say are miracles with people getting good. Like some people have 2 right hands, 2 left feet. They don't hear words the way I'm saying them for some reason. They don't know their left and right. Completely uncoordinated, and I've seen those people stick it through and continue to be good and end up being really good and even make it to black belt. I've seen everyone from all walks of life, learning disabilities, doesn't matter, get good at jiu-jitsu. The issue I think people have is that it's like the participation trophy mindset where they want jiu-jitsu, they want the class, they want me, they want the technique, they want the session to conform around their needs.
Entitlement.
Yeah, it's just all entitlement. And they're not willing to do what it takes to get good at jiu-jitsu. But it can be for absolutely everybody if you just understand what it means to train jiu-jitsu and get good at it, Yeah. And that's not to say that my program's the way. It's just how I believe jiu-jitsu should be done. We're all training the same way. It's real. If you get your face choked, I don't want to hear about it. That's a real thing that could happen in the street. No one's going to care about your teeth. Make sure you're fighting hands. And if someone takes your back, you're prioritizing it as a serious thing and you won't get your face choked, right? And maybe you do, tap early, but we're going to train jiu-jitsu the same way. Some people think that's a little too intense and they're like, listen, there's some schools that have the philosophy their students don't roll for the first couple months. They don't do any live training for the first couple months
crazy.
Or even the year.
Yeah.
To me, that's like showing someone how to swim and never letting them get in the pool, So I have a different philosophy. I have a philosophy on how jiu-jitsu training should be. I lived it and I've obviously taken information from all the people who have trained and failed and trained and succeeded. And I'm doing the best I can as a coach, and this is my philosophy. Maybe you want to show up and train jiu-jitsu and it be a little more relaxed, and you don't have to roll every round, and you can take rounds off when you're tired, and you don't have to compete or you don't have to whatever. And that's fine, because I believe everyone should be on the mat. If you're doing that, it's better than being on the couch. You're training for a different reason, that's all good. But under me and the way I believe our jiu-jitsu should be, it's different. So again, not that it's the way, maybe you go find another gym, that's fine. But I'm very clear about that with people. This is what I expect of you. This is my idea of what's going to make you successful. And, there's a million gyms if you don't like it,
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It's in your speeches. So a little bit, I'm going to get a little anecdotal from where I came from in San Diego. It was more of a family gym, which was great. It was nice and like cultured, kind of culty, honestly. But
Yeah.
it was just like, okay, cool. Like everyone's a family over there. It was a great community. And then I went over to Syndicate, and you and Shane just started teaching, I think, maybe 4 years ago. Yeah, something like that.
It's like right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning.
You've been us.
Yeah, but I already knew right away. And I'm not going to lie to you, Coach. I was like, wait a minute, man. This isn't something I used to, because it was like a rough kind of, the way you teach. It's kind of like, hey, let's go. I often talk about it in this podcast.
Yeah.
Man, did I have a rude awakening.
Yeah.
When I first got there, coming from like a family gym.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, shit. Funny story, which I don't care about now, and I mean that, is that my jiu-jitsu coach in San Diego was telling me, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you like your blue belt before you leave. I was like, okay. And I was chasing after. I moved to Vegas, and I was still a 4-stripe white. And I was like, I even hit him up. I was like, oh, hey, coach, can I get my blue belt before I leave? And then when I came here under your program, I was like, oh, this shit doesn't even matter. I'm not even a fucking blue belt. I had a rude awakening of what that was. And at first, I was kind of offended, more mad at myself, because it was almost like I was taught a lie.
Exactly.
And I don't blame the school or anything. I know people run things different, but I'm like, this is completely different. There's levels to this shit. Not even like, how good people at jiu-jitsu are, but just how they train.
Yeah.
What I perceived in my own head, in my own ego, was like, I'm a blue belt, man. I can do this, I can do that in the gi and stuff. And then when I got here, I'm like, dude, Corey, for instance, right? When he first started off, when he started getting really good, like I knew him we all knew him when he first started. And then he was asking me like, oh, how'd you do that, man? He thought I was like the coolest thing ever. And then all of a sudden, this guy just surpasses everyone. I'm like, damn, my ego's hurt a little bit.
It just keeps it real, man. That's what's so cool about jiu-jitsu. And that's what I feel like is so unfair to people, that they're giving them this false sense of confidence. I would be embarrassed as a coach to let you go out and wear a brown belt or a black belt, and then you get in a fight and you can't protect yourself or your family against some tough high school wrestler who's just down, and he's been fighting in the streets for, in his neighborhood since he grew up. You grew up a little bit rough. I never want our guys to have that false sense of confidence. It's supposed to be real. And I think what people are doing is they're trying to make jiu-jitsu for everyone by conforming to everyone. So the opposite of my philosophy. And they're doing it for business.
Yes.
You keep showing up, I'll keep giving you stripes until those stripes turn into a new belt. Just keep paying the bills, makes everyone happy.
Yeah, sign in, we'll see where you're at, right? Like,
Jiu-jitsu's for everyone, right? And to me, and you see it, like classes are packed because I think people like that we keep it real. Like we are going to train realistically, and some dude who just worked 40 hours and has kids and only trains 3 times a week can hang with this dude who he just saw fighting in the UFC card. It's like, damn, like I'm actually learning something pretty useful. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can compete with these guys. And that's what I love about our gym, is constantly the opposite happens. Like some purple belt will come in, roll with you and be like, dude, I feel like I don't deserve my purple belt here. I wouldn't be a purple belt here. And that's that's how I came up training. That's how my coaches were. You should, just because you think you deserve your next belt, it probably means you're usually 6 months to a year away from it. So it's, a little bit delusional on our part, overhyping how good we are. And then the other thing is wanting people to, when they get that belt, feel like what I would like is for them to have a little bit of imposter syndrome, because I always did. I would think, damn, I'm a blue belt, I'm tapping these purples. Basically, all the blue belts can't hang with me. I deserve my purple belt, And then I get my purple belt, and I'm like, oh, damn, like, now I better make sure that I'm a good purple belt, because now there's another target on my back. Like there should be some sort of imposter syndrome. And it's always a red flag to me when people are like, I deserve my belt. And then they're like, cool, I got my belt. I deserved that. And usually I don't see them, because then it hits them. Oh shit, I got to keep training now. And there's another couple belts. And then you're going to get to one belt that doesn't matter anymore. For me, there's no more belts. So if you're training to chase belts, what's going to happen when you finally reach black belt? Yeah. Right? Usually those people aren't going to reach black belt, but if you do and you're still wanting to the belt, it's over. So you're going to move on to the next thing in life, the next challenge, right? Or what you perceive as the next challenge. And to me, I just want people to just get comfortable and happy making those little bits of progress every day. Because again, not just for the mat, not just for jiu-jitsu, it'll carry over into the rest of your life. Just make those little efforts of being a little bit better, whether it's your emotions, maybe you and your wife have bad communication skills. And every time you get mad, one of you blows up, right? And so every time you guys get into this position where you have the opportunity to be a little bit better, working on it, being mindful, like, she's really pissing me off right now. I could blow up and say what's on my mind. I'm gonna try and practice what I've been wanting to practice. I'm gonna step away for 10 minutes, take 10 deep breaths, go punch a pillow, go punch a bag, go do jiu-jitsu class, then come back, and then we'll talk. And just seeing how those little progressives can turn into, you know, one big positive outcome, or, you know, of a goal we reach. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So those are what's important. But like, it sucks that you had to come from a gym that tried to make everyone happy.
It was crazy.
And gave you this false sense of confidence. And then, you know, it turns out bad.
Yeah, and now that I look back at it, I often talk about it here too, that, damn, like the way we roll, and this is coming from objective, and I'm sure people have told you feedback, but oh, fuck, like when we roll on Fridays and even just on a Monday, like we rolled a lot of rounds, I was like, oh, we're done drilling? Oh, shit.
Here we go.
This is going to be rounds and rounds and rounds.
Yeah.
But dude, I've said this before in the podcast, you guys make fucking killers. All the people that I came up with, and some people from the Cobra Kai gym I noticed that have come, Dave, you know, Kevin, and all them. It's like, damn, everyone's just, their game has so when I was telling that about my story, it was like, oh, now I kind of feel like a part of it now. Yeah. Like a part of,
now I'm doing jiu-jitsu.
Like I'm doing jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And it's the best feeling in the world. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but then, you know, you actually had a pep talk with me probably, I don't know, I'd say 2 years ago. Be like, hey man, like you were really being real. You were like, oh, look, I know you like to pretty much roll with these certain people, but it's gonna like hinder your game. That's like a paraphrasing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember now.
Yeah. And I was like, oh fuck. I had a big introspection about that, where it was almost like a light bulb moment. Yeah. Because like I was telling you at first, coming from that gym, I'm like, wait, why is he pretty much like yelling at us? You know what I mean? He was kind of like, wait, what do you mean? Like keep going and going and going? What are you talking? I don't need to do this shit. Yeah. But then like coming from where I come from, that's why I respect you so much, is because I think of myself as punctual and consistent. Yeah. And I couldn't be a little bitch to myself. Yeah. You know, I was like, nah, what the fuck if I quit now? Who the fuck am I? Yeah, for sure, bro. Yeah. Not that I was planning on quitting, but to uphold whatever your program was. Yeah. And nowadays I'm really glad at this. So I have you to thank for that, because I'm really glad I did that, because now I do feel like, oh, like you're one of the boys, right? Like you're rolling with the toughest people there. And it's kind of like, oh, I could like kind of hold my own. I still have a lot to learn, but you know, and all that. So speaking of that, how do you set up your curriculums, coach? Like, are you just basing it on experience? Are you basing it on practical videos that you see that you're like, okay, maybe I want to teach this because it'll help in competition? Like, how are you basing from class to class, or maybe just in general?
So something huge that helps me is just rolling with everyone constantly. I could do a better job of not rolling and watching everyone. But for me, like, I could get a bad idea, and this is in my head, of what everyone needs to work on based on what they're going with everyone, but then me feeling what they need to work on and the intentions of their techniques to proper moves, me doing something properly, and then your reaction to that, I get a good idea of where we need to focus on. So if generally I have an idea of what I want to do for the month, and it's going to be, you know, maybe it's guard, or maybe it's but then as I'm training, I'm seeing the specifics of what guard you guys need help with. And so I'm kind of just playing it by ear a little bit of where everyone on the team generally needs work. And that's basically what I'm doing for my curriculum. If there's nothing, like something huge that comes up too, is again, competitions. I'll be like, man, we need to learn. We already went over these guard passes. We need to add on it now. And then we'll compete. And I'll be like, oh, we got to go 3 steps back. We got to get out of close guard again. We got to work on passing half guard when we have the underhook. Or we got to work on coming up from half guard when we have the underhook, but we're flat. Just simple things we got to go back to. And it almost like a reset of like, all right, guys, let's refocus on this. And then when we do that and we've touched on it again, then maybe I can add something else or build or whatever. But it's just constantly reading the room, keeping my fingers on the pulse of the room and where you guys' game's at, and
I also noticed in your programs the whole time I've been there, I think it's going on 4 years now, that it's very seldom that you actually do the submissions. It's actually more of a practical way to like pass guard.
Yeah.
Because like I said, in other schools, like I've been to other schools here, honestly, you know, to try out when I first moved here. And it's a lot based on submissions.
Yeah.
But it's
The fun stuff.
Exactly. But going over here, it's more of like, you know, like say for leg locks, going into the position of a leg lock and then transitioning into like what's that single leg? I just still don't know the terms with that single leg X and X guard and all that stuff.
Yeah. Versus just going over the break.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Huge for me. You know, position and control way more important than the submission. If you knock those two out, the submission will come. Right. Even further than that, you know, being bulletproof, being untappable, knowing that my mount escapes, my side control escapes, my guard recovery, all of those are on point because I've spent so much time working on them. Now I can go for whatever I want because if I end up in a bad position, I know I'm going to recover and I'll be able to try again versus never focusing on it and only doing the fun stuff.
Right.
And I was like, man, I'm going to jump for this arm bar right now. It looked super cool on Instagram, but if I mess it up, I'm going to spend 4 minutes and 30 seconds in the bottom of side control on so-and-so, you know? So you're just less likely to try new things and open up and have fun, and you don't really get to enjoy the game. I was having this talk, were you there in class when I was talking about doing these things, and like most people they're not even in a position yet to enjoy what jiu-jitsu is and really play the game.
Yeah,
and it's so
I think
crazy.
That was a great point, yeah.
It's so crazy to me. Yeah, it's like, you know, the more rules that you learn of a game, the funner it becomes because then you can start using tactics and like thinking and using setups and tricking people and figuring how to get to that next level of the game. And most people they're just like, I have my A game. It's a crappy A game, but I'm only going to play that because my ego won't allow me to lose, even though I'm going to lose consistently. I'm just going to keep hammering away at this A game. And they haven't really like started to understand like what the game it really is. You know, setting traps and setting people up for stuff like
like feigning and all that stuff.
So much fun. And so like do these boring things now. Do the stuff that's miserable. And why am I showing up here? I drove all the way here. I had a bad day. I don't want to get mounted by all these dudes and get suffocated and arm barred. And I don't want to do that today. But that's what it takes to get good. And then you really get like a good understanding of what jiu-jitsu is. And most people right now don't even understand it yet.
Right. You know? I mean, on that note too, I mean, I used to be that type of guy where I'd just lay there. And then kind of like, I thought like I was doing something. I was like, yeah, he can't get me. So I'm like defending really well.
Yeah.
But then we also had another talk.
Yeah.
You were like, dude, you need to move. I'm like, oh, fuck. So now something clicked in my brain again to where even if I'm giving up like turtle or my back or I'm still working and within those movements, there's small repetitions that I'm getting actual looks on.
Yeah.
Like say if someone has my back, okay, I'll roll over here. And then I'm just kind of flowing and getting into different positions. Those are repetitions
for sure
that I wasn't doing, you know, when I first got there. So I was like, oh, damn.
Most people don't get to do it. And it's, again, I think it's just keeping it real. Like if you can sit in the turtle position, face down, elbows down, knees connected, and survive the round by not getting choked. If in your head, you don't say, damn, but if punches were involved, you know, how would that have gone for me? Like, just keeping it real. Like, what are we training for? It's a martial art. We're trying to protect ourselves. And that's why it's important. You know, I'm always preaching about gi, no gi, and MMA. And even if you don't do MMA, roll with someone where punches are involved.
Right.
Where open hand slaps are involved. And then see where your jiu-jitsu's at and how useful your jiu-jitsu is. But just that alone, just being able to survive a round with movement is a way different story than just surviving because you shelled up and didn't get choked, right?
Yeah.
What did we show up to train for? We didn't get better that day, you know? But movement's important. Yeah, I remember having those talks with you. It's funny. And it's awesome that you listened, you know? A lot of people just like, goes in one ear and out the other and like, yeah. Or maybe they're receptive to it right then, but again.
Well, it goes back to the ego thing, right? And it also helps that you are like the prototype, like you are, you know, as small as I am. And I'm like, what do you, dude, it's almost one of those things. And this is what I want to actually take a note on is that I can look at all these high level belts or high level instructors, you know, on Instagram, Gordon Ryan, you know, and all that. I know people get caught up in that. But to actually have someone in real life show you like, oh, there's a pathway to this shit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, if Jerry can do it, fucking I can do it, you know?
For sure.
And he's doing it like at the highest level. It's different seeing it in front of your eyes instead of like looking at Instagram scrolling through. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, especially someone your size. So it's not like, because Gordon Ryan, like he's a big, scary looking guy. If he does something, it's like, So I always say it's like one of the coolest cells of jiu-jitsu, me being my size. It's like it happens all the time. Guys come into Syndicate and they're like, the front desk girls will introduce, like, this is our jiu-jitsu coach, and they'll kind of give me a look like, what the fuck is this little guy gonna show me, or what's he gonna do to me?
Did you read that from him?
Oh, for sure. It's just kind of like, okay, you know.
Right.
And then we roll. And if I was a big, scary, tatted up, like if I look like Coach Wood, right, bigger, scarier looking guy, tatted up, mangled ears, it's like, okay, he beats me up. He's supposed to beat me up. He looks like he could beat me up. Like, what? Cool.
Right.
But when someone smaller than you does it, and in your head, you're like, I'm just gonna throw this guy around, and you feel helpless. That's what I think is such a cool sell to jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what sold me on jiu-jitsu. I was getting beat up by bigger guys, stronger guys. It didn't register. It was like, yeah, you're supposed to. I didn't like appreciate it. And then someone who I thought I was gonna noogie, give a wedgie to for 5 minutes, messed me up so effortlessly. That's when it clicked. It's about technique, and that I could be successful in it, even with bigger, stronger looking people. You know, it made me appreciate the technical side of jiu-jitsu. You know?
Before this podcast, we were talking and like about not just how good you are in jiu-jitsu, but it is like a philosophical mindset that you have. It's your mindset for sure. Like I could see it. Like I said, like even with this podcast, like there was no way you're gonna flake out because you're just that type of guy.
Yeah.
You know, when someone, I know when someone says they're gonna do something, they're gonna do it, and it shows a lot about them.
Yeah.
Can you take me back to like when you were a kid? Where did you even learn that, man? Like, was it self-taught or was it from your parents? Like, you know, growing up, were you like, okay, well, I need to be more? Were you a troubled kid? Were you like responsible growing up the whole time, or where did you learn all these things? Like about
none of those. I was not responsible. My parents were the best, and they taught me and raised me to be a respectful, genuine person. You know, to be a good man. So they did an amazing job with that. They were just very, very, very supportive, and too much of anything isn't good. And as supportive as they were, not that it's their fault, but the way I received that was that I could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
So I didn't commit to anything. I was like the opposite of in school. If I didn't want to go to school, I didn't go to school. If I didn't want to do my homework, I didn't do my homework. I had zero discipline, and I was very driven off of my emotions. I did what I wanted to do or what I felt like doing. And there was no, I got a job, thought I wanted to do it. I'd be there 2 weeks. I'm not doing this. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Which job was that?
Any of them. Dude, I had like 50 by the time I was, 30 to 50. But by the time I was 18, like, dude, just trying different like sales jobs, like all kinds of BS that as soon as I didn't like it, there was no like grit to be like, I gotta tough this out. And then my parents would be like, whatever makes you happy, you'll find something that makes you happy. Very supportive. And I took it the negative. What I should have done is like, cool, I have this very supportive family. Let me make the most of myself. Instead, I did the opposite. I can get away with whatever I want. You know, school didn't matter. So what gave me discipline, what made me tough out the things I didn't want to do was my desire to be good on the mat. So I knew I wanted to be good at jiu-jitsu. My coach was my size, maybe a little smaller. I saw him wrecking dudes. He was like one of the mat enforcers. If some punk came in and coach was like, yo, Sim, go wrap this dude up. So I was like, man, I want to do that. And just picking their brains. Hey, what did you do? I just showed up. Right? Another simple concept. Just show up. Okay, I'll just show up. And then, dude, my arm kind of popped. Elbow sore. Do I go and train? Yes, you go in and train. You know, there's a death in the family. I'm not feeling like I should train. Should I go train? Yes, go train. Whatever it was, I just kept showing up. And it's super cliche again to just show up and you'll get your black belt. That's all I did. Everything else fell into place. Simple concept. Very hard to do day in and day out, over and over and over again, twice a day for 18 years. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I think started me on the path of like understanding how important discipline was. And and just luckily I've been able to carry it over into the rest of my life. Like if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do something. If I put my mind to something, I'm gonna figure out a way. There's no plan B's for me. You know, once I set it going in motion, it's on. Like I'm gonna make sure it happens before I ever quit, you know? So
yeah, I think what I see in that commitment and consistency, because I was listening to yours and Nick's podcast, and you were saying that you had a pull job, right? Like the industry job at Light, Mandalay Bay. And I've been working the industry pretty much all my life too. Yeah. But one thing I don't compromise on, and even I talk about this sometimes with my friends that are so money driven, that are in their industry, and they know that I train, and they were like, yeah, you didn't take that pull job? Are you kidding me? Like, I knew someone that could get you in. I'm like, if it compromises like me lifting or training, I'm not going to do it. I don't give a fuck how much money. I even told them, they're like, yeah, right. And then when it was time to get hired, I was like, I'm not taking it. Yeah. I was like, this is more important, like health, trying to strive for something that's internal and not even something external, right? Because you get better every day, whether it's like Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, I know I'm getting better at this shit. And to me, that's worth more than, I don't want to be all dramatic about it, but worth more than any money that I can possibly, because I have had opportunities to make that kind of money. And I was like, nah.
And now you've got the opportunity to do something you really love. And that's the thing people mistake. Like, it's not that we don't care about money. I think people's idea of what money is and what it means is off, right? So like, if you want money just to get money, you're never going to be happy, because there's always going to be more money to get. And the more money you make, you usually spend more money. So it's not like your income versus outcome changes much. You're still going to be in the same position. It's not like you make more money, you have more money to blow. Now you're getting nicer things for yourself, you're upgrading your house, whatever it is. So you're going to make more money, and you're just never going to be happy. Whereas like, my idea of making more money is to get more freedom for myself. I want to make more money, so I have to do less so that I can spend more time with my kids. There's this like backwards idea of like, just us as men, when we have kids, like, we're supposed to work as hard as we can to save up as much as we can to retire early and be done when we're 40. By the time that happens, your kids are grown up, and now you have all this time to spend on what, right? Like, the time I want to spend is like while my kids are growing up, right? Like, so reasons why you make money is important, not just making money. So you want to make money, but you're also like, if you could make a living doing this, even if it was just making ends meet, you'd be rich. How many people get to do that?
100%.
Just the bills are paid for. You not living fancy, just bills are paid for doing just this. How dope would that? You have time to go train, you have time to take care of yourself. You're rich. Most people can't say that. Most people make a lot of money, miserable, and they have no time to spend it or do what they want, because they're a slave to their job, Whereas like, you do something like, and that was always my goal with jiu-jitsu. I don't care how much I make. If I can make a living doing it, even if it's bare minimum, I'm rich. So I'm going to put all my eggs in that basket.
Worked out pretty well, too.
Yeah, and it's materialized, thank God. So
kind of like keeping up with the Joneses, I think, is the most part of what people like, comparison.
Yeah.
They want to kind of like match up to people's lifestyles.
For sure. Yeah.
But a couple more things, Coach. I wanted to talk to you because I thought it was interesting. I think maybe this was last year or 2 years ago that you had a little thing about like with parents and like them. Maybe it was, I want to know what your thoughts on this. Maybe it's them trying to live vicariously through their kid, where, as them as a child, that they didn't reach their potential goal. So they have to do that through their kid. What do you think about that when coaches that haven't trained, when parents haven't trained in that art, are telling you how to do like your job?
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough because it's usually ignorance. It's like if someone who's never worked out, they're 300 pounds, smoking cigarettes, they know generally like you shouldn't, like let's say your dad did that and he's like, Chris, don't do what I do. You're like, yeah, I know, but like it's tough for me to take advice from you, right? So like they're trying to give advice that they know nothing about, even if they're correct. Maybe they've been a UFC fan forever, and what they're telling their kid, like, hey, fight hands, yelling at their kid, fight. Oh yeah, that's good advice, but like, if you've never done it, you really don't know how hard it is to even fight hands when you're exhausted, and which hand to fight, and in what direction do you fight the hand and pull the hand. So it creates unnecessary pressure on the kids. Even if it's good advice, it's even worse though if they haven't done it. But the ironic thing is most of the parents who train, they don't say a word. They keep their mouth shut. They let me do my job. Yeah. They don't want to put any of that external pressure on their kid. And just some parents don't care, man. And it's wild. And again, the overall thing, this isn't about anything other than what's best for the kids. Right? It's tough. I talk about this all the time. Statistically, no one's going to be like, not to crap on you, you won't be here next year on the mats with me.
Sure.
That's just how it goes. And I got told that at an early stage in my jiu-jitsu career, and I was like, we'll see. And I knew how bad I wanted. I was going to prove whoever's told me that wrong, Not it was like malicious from them, but I'm not going to be a statistic. I told myself that a long time ago. But that's just how it is. And it's because life gets in the way. Discipline is non-existent nowadays. Consistency is unheard of. So people are just going to fall off eventually. Even if they love it now, let's see if you love it in a year. Let's see if you love it after the injury. Let's see if you love it after the hardship, the breakup. Let's see how much you love jiu-jitsu when it's boring and you have to figure out how to get past that rut. Let's see if you stick around then. That's as adults, and us paying money and driving ourselves and making a decision to make this a lifestyle. It's tough for them and to make it through. Now, think about these kids. They still have to get through puberty, girls and boys, friends, right? School, college. I want everyone to stay on the mat as long as possible. I don't care about medals. I want them to make this a part of their life. And when a parent is forcing their kid to be there, right? The kid doesn't even really want to go, right. But you have to learn a martial art. You have to learn how to defend yourself. Okay, mom and dad, I'll go. And then when they're there, they're doing something that's one of the hardest things you can do, right? Getting mounted. It's not easy to just get up out of mount, right? Like all the parents yell. So like you're doing something incredibly hard that most of it's failure. And now your parent forced you to be there. It's incredibly hard. And now your parents bitching at you because you can't do what they're telling you to do in the situation that they don't even want to be in. As soon as that kid gets the opportunity to turn down training, they're going to. So it's just like, it's more about for the kids of enjoying the process, being willing to fail and not, God, if I don't get this armbar, I'm going to get yelled at on the way home. Or if I don't get out of mount, I'm going to get yelled at on the way home. It's just tough for them, man. So I feel like the parents just need to do a better job of understanding that this is for their growth. This is for them. This isn't about me. This isn't about them. This is about the kids. And let's do what's best for them and set them up for success. It's just tough getting through to people who are ignorant, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. They just have no idea how hard it is to get out of mount. And if they did, they'd zip their lips.
Yeah, right.
It happens all the time. Parents start training, and then they go, oh, damn, I was a jerk for that. Like, I was really putting a lot of pressure on my kid, and I was a jerk because now I admire them, how hard they train, and that they're willing to show up every day. And it just completely changes their perspective and idea of what jiu-jitsu is. So it just sucks, man. It sucks when most of my job, most of the time, in getting through to these kids and making their life successful, the biggest obstacle is their parents.
Right.
You know?
It's
and we're all supposed to be on the same team.
Yeah. Last thing you have to worry about.
So that's my gripe with it. You know, I want parents to let the kid, and that's the other thing too. If I had to constantly entertain someone while I was training, it wouldn't be as fun as well. If my wife always wanted to be at the gym and watch me and record me, put that pressure on me, I wouldn't be open to opening up and potentially getting my butt kicked and trying something new. Let them have their time away from the world. That's our time away from the world. We could be having a bad day, and at least I got jiu-jitsu where we have an hour to forget it because we're fighting off chokes and leg locks, you know? Give your kids an hour away from the world. Let this be their time instead of your time and making it about you, you know?
How did you deal with that? I know there's a fine line between, you know, kind of, when is too much, when a parent is harping?
When they're disruptive. I've had to kick parents out. And,
really?
You know, and kids.
And you had to have that talk with them?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I have multiple talks, and it just usually gets to a point where it's like, listen, like now it's counterproductive for me, for my gym. You're ruining the culture here. Other parents are getting annoyed. Parents have gotten fights, like straight up fist fights, you know? Imagine you have a kid and I have a kid, and I'm yelling at my kid to break your kid's arm, right? Like no one's going to tolerate that. So it's just, if you're disrupting the culture that we have at the gym, most of the parents, 98% of them are amazing. There's just always a few that sneak through that they want it their way. They've never trained a day in their life. They would get smoked by some of our teenage girls, yet they're yelling at their kid, making them feel less than because they can't get out of a jiu-jitsu position, you know? So it's a tough battle, man. But again, 98% of the parents are awesome. We've done a good job. I think even the parents monitor amongst themselves now. Someone will do something and they'll say, hey, we don't really allow that here.
Like,
you know?
they know the community.
Yeah, so it's a community now, and that's what I want, you know? So I want to, again, I love everyone. I want everyone to train jiu-jitsu. My program's not going to be for everyone, though. You know, if you want your kid to get more attention, you want to be allowed to yell and whatever, even though it's universally frowned upon against, at every gym, don't coach from the sidelines. Go find another gym, you know? As good as your kid is, as good as the adult is, I could have a world champion on my hands. If you're disrupting the culture we have,
it's not worth it.
It's not worth it to me. I don't want it, you know?
So the other thing too is that Shane, even on Nick's podcast, he's talked about, you know, his struggles and you know, his addictions. As his big brother, I mean, and you know, he said this before that, you know, he looks up to you and he's like your partner in crime. And how was that like growing up with Shane? Did you have to monitor him, like as far as through his troubles and struggles, through like, you know, I know that you're in his corner coaching him. Yeah. How was that like, you being, you know, was it like you the responsible one and Shane was just getting into trouble?
No, man, he was never in trouble. I didn't find out about his struggles for real. Like, he was 14, I think, when it started. Okay. And we're 7 years apart. No, are we 7? Yeah, I think 7 years. Jeez, I'm losing my head. Yeah, 7 years apart. So 14, I'm 21. Already started training. I got him in the gym. He's winning tournaments. He's winning fights, all while doing his stuff. And I really didn't know how much of an issue it was until obviously started learning more and more about it, watching him go up and down with the stuff. So, dude, it was hard. Yeah, still, you know, it's a constant struggle. You know, obviously, you know, like once an addict, always an addict. So it's like, it's a constant, you know, mindfulness that I have, trying to make sure he's making the best decisions and doing the best for himself and watching. So, but yeah, he was never in trouble. Always good. Like, you know, not combative with anything. When he screws up, he's like, it's almost too much where he'll just like, he knows he messed up. He'll take his ear lashings and whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So never problems like that, you know? Just the overall, just trying to get him over that hump was the struggle, you know?
And I guess it was the wrong word. I wasn't assuming that he got into trouble, but you know, usually addiction and like
it's hand in hand.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I definitely was. I got like 3 DUIs and, you know, all this stuff back in my early 20s. And yeah, I've asked Shane which he's going to be on here, but I've asked him to kind of talk about it because I think it'd be helpful to people, because Shane, a lot of people look up to Shane, and so do I.
For sure.
I'm like, damn.
Everyone, man. I do too. Everyone. Like, everyone looks up to him, and it's just a, you know, I'm preaching to the choir. I don't know from a certain standpoint. I can just speak from the outside of a family member who's gone through it with him, you know. Trying to manage it is rough, you know, like even from my end, like trying to figure out what works. What kind of love do I give somebody that's going through that? Like, and I've had to work through all of them, from unintentional enabling, because I want to make him happy and do what's best for him, and also feel good about myself. But that's also sometimes no good, because you're enabling them to do something, all the way to tough love. Right. And the tough love is the hard part. Like, it's not just tough love on them. It's like, I got to do something and put my foot down to let you know how you're potentially going to ruin relationships, your life, this and that. Like, and I got to stick by it too, you know? Like, one of the things I learned early on was like, listen, if you're dealing with a family member with an addiction, like, don't say anything, don't threaten them with anything you're not willing to uphold, because it's very easy to say, listen, man, like, you better get your shit together. I'm kicking you out of the house. Are you going to kick him out of the house knowing where that road could lead? Right. So like, it's tough love on both ends, man. And like, trying to find the sweet spot and all that is rough. Like, loving them, never turning your back on them, but also having some hard lines so that they know that you're serious when you're trying to do what's right for them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it's a struggle, man. It's tough. And like, our family's super close, you know, always had each other's back. I feel like, you know, with Shane's hard work that he's done to try and get himself out of the hole, like, you know, most people don't have the support that Shane's had with his family, most people, and I hear it all the time. Yeah, I have a family member that went through that too. We don't talk anymore. We had to kick him out of the house, and that's it. And they just wiped their hands with it. Yeah. It's not how our family's ever been. Like, we got each other's back no matter what.
And the circumstances that you get put in, huh? Like, sometimes wild, it's just the luck of the draw, or
100%. Yeah, like it's one big, you know, factor. Like, who's in your corner? How much do you want to get better? How much you're willing. Shane says it best. He's like, you know, everyone's entitled to their own pain. You know, so you can't want them to get better more than they want to get better. So what's going to be their rock bottom? And, you know, it's all these things that kind of have to line up for them to get clean and stay clean. And, you know, it's obviously a lifelong journey. It's never like, okay, I'm clean and now I'm good again. I can go back to my old habits. Like, figuring out what those habits are, avoiding them, external pressures, girlfriends,
the cues,
boyfriends, right? Like, whoever you are, like, if you have the wrong people in your corner, it's like, like, my girlfriend, she drinks, so I'm gonna go hang out with her while she drinks, and I can be okay. It's like, man, that's not who you need to be with. Like, you need to be with someone who understands what this issue is, not brush it under the rug, and see it for what it is. It's not a joke, man. Like, people die. You just told me someone, you know, who was it that killed themselves?
Which one was it on that one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking to a friend. No, right before I got here, they were telling me same situation. People kill themselves. Oh, my grandma's a friend of hers, same thing, like, going through addiction issues, late in his 70s. So it's just like, you know, as far as that, you don't, when's rock bottom gonna hit? And, you know, what are you doing to prevent that rock bottom? How many situations and circumstances are you avoiding that seem like fun, that seem like, I just want to be a normal person. I just want to be able to go to the bar. I just want to be able to hang out with my friends and have a beer.
Yeah.
How real are you willing to be with yourself to avoid what that outcome looks like if you keep going down that road? You know, most people want to dance on the road and think they can just hop off whenever they want. Usually you start heading down that road, you're going to be stuck on that road. Like, so we need to find detours at every possible chance we can, you know, and it's just tough, man, you know, again, and it flips back to you can't help someone more than they want to be helped. So
Exactly.
I'm trying to figure out, and I've had to try to figure out where my role is. You know, how much do I care? How much do I allow myself to care before it's counterproductive for myself as well? You know?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's their life. They're entitled to their own pain. They're entitled to their own misery. And it's just, dude, it's finding a balance, you know?
Yeah, people that's known me for a while, and luckily I have about 2 or 3 close friends, because more than that is hard to manage. Kind of like dating more than one person. But I always got the feedback that, or they tell me this in hindsight now, but then they said, we thought you were, and this is cliche to say for most addicts, but they were saying how I drank was either I was going to get like pancreatic cancer because I drank a 720 milliliter liquor or bottle of like whiskey every night, like on an empty stomach. Like, because you want to feel it.
Yeah.
And that was just 2.5 years ago. And when I was doing jiu-jitsu back then, I'm sure like the first half of when I started coming to you guys, people would make fun of me and say, oh, you partied too hard last night, right? Little they know I was in my fucking room just fucking, that's just how it was. And I wrote this newsletter, this blog post on my newsletter, how like martial arts and alcoholism was kind of fighting each other. Yeah. It's not like I learned, or I started doing martial arts and all of a sudden, oh, I'm better now. Like, here we are. It's a journey, like, you know, you said, and it's going to be a forever kind of journey. But nowadays it's fine. I like everything that I'm doing now. And I always say this is that I can say, yeah, I'm a resilient motherfucker, but I got lucky, man. You know, I don't know how. It's just
but you're still doing it.
Me.
Again, like there's not a destination. You're never going to be fixed.
Right.
Exactly. Your black belt's never just going to be a black belt. Like your wife isn't just going to stay your wife. All these things, it's all relevant, where it's like your pursuit of constantly getting better is going to keep you where you're at, you know?
Yeah.
Another thing with like my marriage, jealousy, right? It's a very normal human trait. Some people, that voice in their head that's telling them to be jealous is loud and screaming, and your wife or your husband is probably cheating on you. And why is that chick looking at you like that? And it causes problems because they're not emotionally mature yet to understand that jealousy is normal, but you got to do your best to fight it off. And eventually you do a good job and you become emotionally more mature to where that voice is a whisper, but it's never going to go away. Your want for potentially drinking is never going to just go away, but your effort to make sure that that voice in your head is as quiet as possible so you can say, shut the fuck up, I'm not having a drink. That's your job. And it's, if you get complacent, like anything else, it's going to go to shit. And that's the thing, is I think people need to understand it. Everything we want to do to be better, we need to be constantly in pursuit of it.
Yes.
We can't just go, okay, cool, I did it. I've been clean now for 2 months. I can ease off the gas. Like, nah, like we got to constantly be pushing. Whatever is important to you, you need to constantly strive for. And if you do get to a point where you did it, it wasn't a big enough goal. And it's probably not gonna make that much of an impact in your life.
Right.
The big important things are gonna take constant pursuit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, again, you're never arrived, you're always becoming.
Exactly. So it's huge, man.
So, all right, Coach. So one last question. I know I want to be very mindful of your time. I know you're a busy guy, but when we're all gone, when we're long gone from this earth, what would you want to tell your kids about how you lived your life, and what advice would you have for them?
Hopefully they've watched me enough to see those things and like want to imitate it, you know? Like that's what I'm hoping. So like, 'cause even now, like there's things that I tell my kids that like, yeah, dad, you know, like everyone, mom or dad says, it's like they blow it off. But like, I feel like the way that I live my life, that's why I try to practice what I preach constantly, is so that my kids see what I do and the results of it instead of me just talking about it. So I would like to just recap and let them know the things that I think are important for them, why they're important, how you get to them. And I can give an example of how I did it, you know?
Yeah.
So just, you know, being good people, whatever that means to them, loving who they're with, you know, their spouse, taking care of their kids, putting them at a priority, taking care of themselves, putting them also at themselves as a priority, their mental health, knowing that they're fucked up. We're all fucked up, right? No one's perfect. And so when somebody isn't actively working on themselves, to me, it's carelessness or delusion that they think that they don't have anything wrong with them, right? So it's like, we need to know that we're fucked up so that we always have something to work on, and we need to find ways to figure those things out. And I want them to know that so that they don't feel bad when they make mistakes. They just know that it's one more thing they need to work on. And, you know, in that process, they'll be the best possible people they can.
Right.
You know? yeah, just do whatever it means to be great. Like whatever they think, whatever imprint they want to leave on the world, you know, whether it's just with people, whether it's within their community that they enjoy. You know, I love jiu-jitsu. Hopefully I'm remembered as a good coach and a good, you know, so like just little things like that that are important to me. Hopefully they just see me living my life that way and then they want to, you know, imitate it.
Awesome. Beautifully said, Coach. Well, thank you for your time again.
My pleasure. Thank you. Hey, I'm proud of you too, man. Like 2.5 years clean and some heavy stuff, dude. Most people don't. I have a couple friends that they were drinking pretty heavy like that, and yeah, they need new livers.
I've seen
I had a friend that just OD'd recently, like I think a week and a half ago. Childhood friend. So, dude, recovering addicts don't get enough credit. Like, especially the ones that stick to it and they have the understanding that I'm always going to be an addict. I'm fucked up and it's okay, and I need to constantly be okay with getting better. They don't get enough credit because the end of that road is not good for most people.
Right.
It's homeless, it's dead, it's in jail, bad decisions, burnt bridges all over the place, lonely.
Everything.
It's all of that.
Yeah.
Regret. It's not an easy life to live, man, for them or their family. So I'm proud of you, bro. I didn't know like you were that deep into it,
especially
man.
coming from you.
Man. Yeah, so just keep it up, bro.
All right, cool.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.